day 2 of South Summit here at the Playground stage. My name is Oisín Lunny. I'm an event MC and podcast host for Fortune 500 companies, and it's a real pleasure to be your host for this morning. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn or using the excellent South Summit app if you haven't installed it already. If you're enjoying yourself, feel free to share the love using the hashtag SouthSummit21. Okay, so today at the Playground stage this morning is all about money, fintech, and insurtech. They say that money makes the world go round. Yuval Noah Harari said that money was even the most successful idea that humanity has ever had, more successful than any language or religion. We all agree on the concept of money. It's kind of a big deal. So South Summit 2021 is providing a meeting point between today's opportunities and tomorrow's reality, both for the wonderful people right here in La Nave, in Madrid, the many hundreds, if not thousands of people joining us via the live stream, and everybody who's watching on demand. Hola, bienvenidos. Okay, so at the Playground stage this morning, we are going to have a sensational lineup, bringing you the best and brightest minds in money, fintech, and insurtech. We're going to look at some of the big topics in the sector, things like open banking, blockchain, cryptocurrency, financial services, impact, insurtech, and ecosystems. And then we're going to meet some scale-ups and meet the Scale-Up Spain network. I just wanted to say a very, very special thanks to our global partners for this track, who are Sabadell and Mutua Madrileña. Thank you so much for your support. All of us at South Summit really appreciate it. Okay, so we're going to kick off with our first wonderful panel. It's all about the next generation of open banking. Open banking is important because we live in a world of connected ecosystems. Our expectations of consumer experience are for seamless interaction across platforms, across sectors, and open banking can really deliver on this promise. So we have some fantastic experts who are going to talk to you about open banking this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them each a big round of applause because it's early and we need the energy in the room, and it would be very much appreciated. So ladies and gentlemen, your first big round of applause should go to the country manager, Spain and Portugal at Think AB. Please welcome to the stage, Beatriz Jimenez. Thank you. Welcome, Beatriz. Bienvenidos. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to introduce our moderator for the session this morning, who is the CEO of Receive. Please welcome to the stage, Paul Josefak. Thank you. Welcome, Paul. Okay, and now we're going to have a round of applause that is going to be appreciated virtually as we welcome, beaming in from the UK, the CCO of YAPLEY. Please welcome Ian McDougall. Hey, fantastic. Wonderful. Okay, Paul, thank you so much. The stage is yours.
Thank you for that energetic introduction. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to try and get a couple of questions answered here about open banking. But before we kick off, I'd like to ask both Ian and Beatriz to do a little bit of an introduction, more than just what your role is, a little bit about the company. Maybe give us a minute on what you're doing right now. I'll ask Beatriz to start, and then Ian, you can jump in as well. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. So my role is being country manager for Spain and Portugal at Think. Think is the leading provider in Europe of open banking. And what we do is we connect to financial institutions in order to provide access to financial data to our partners. So through our platform, you could connect and reach over 250 million bank users and their data to create great experiences for the end consumers, to be able to develop new products and to open up, as it was mentioned, the financial services to a broader ecosystem.
Great, thank you. Ian, how about you? Ian, we unfortunately can't hear you. I hope they can do something. Give us 2 seconds. Can you guys check that we can get his audio? Why don't we try again, Ian? Give us another test, Ian. Still there? We can't hear you. Well, then why don't we do this? Why they figure out Ian? I'll come back to him. Why don't I start with you, Beatriz, just so we can keep this moving. So we have discussed a couple of questions about open banking. We tried to make this interesting. The first one I wanted to ask is basically to say, are we already in the next generation of open banking, or are we still getting to quasi the early stages of open banking? Why don't you start with that, Beatriz?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Actually, we did a very recent survey at Think in 2021, and what we saw is that there is a positive sentiment to open banking that is more there than ever, and that everyone believes that open banking would have a revolutionary effect in the industry. But on the other side, in our survey to a bunch of financial executives, what we saw is that around 37% of them would still think that to have the full impact of open banking, we need a decade. Wow. This is because it requires a full transformation, and transformation does not happen overnight. On the other hand, if we look on how important open banking could be for them and how positive they feel that it would really change their business as well as the end consumer, it's that the positiveness towards open banking has increased from 55% in 2019 to 71% this year. Wow. So I would say that we are starting the run, but we need to really embrace the opportunity, and probably by partnering with fintechs like YAPLEY or Think, then we could accelerate and maybe shorten up the decade to 5 years, 7 years, but we are already in the run.
Okay. Ian, are you here with us yet? Another test? Nope, still waiting. So actually a follow-up question to that. So if you see that the speed is picking up, and there's a lot of players in the market, so you kind of hear about new companies every day, is it even possible that we could be even faster to quasi-adoption because it just becomes something that everyone's very aware of? Or is there still just a natural barrier to kind of how fast it can quasi-evolve?
In my opinion, I don't think that having more companies serving open banking would really accelerate. I think we have a number of significant players, and open banking is a game of scale. So you need to be able to provide a platform with a global coverage or a pan-European coverage in order for the financial services industry players as well as other sectors like utilities and telcos to adopt it. So if we're talking about drivers for adoption, I would say that focus should be more on UX, improving the UX, on regulators really making sure that regulation is fully applied and that it fulfills its objectives, which is allowing the end user to really own its financial data, to really own its financial services, and decide who they want to bank with, and when do they want to have a banking experience that it does not necessarily need to be within a banking app. It can be somewhere else, or it can also be a great experience in a banking app, and then you just do it there. It's for the end consumer to use.
Okay. And are those the biggest challenges, or are there also other challenges that you would see kind of in, let's say, next 1 to 2 years? I mean, what's gonna slow things down?
Yeah. So on the one hand, one thing that happens in Europe is that we are fragmented, and that means that each and every country has its own way of interpreting open banking, its own way of implementing open banking that hinders this game of a scale that I was talking about. So the more that we can be homogeneous, the more that we can play a role where everyone speaks the same language and implements in the same way, the more we could accelerate. That's one. The other one would be around providing the end user the security as well as the user experience that would allow them to familiarize with open banking and do not be scared about initiating financial services in a different environment, to not be scared to share their financial services data, and to really think of open banking as many of the processes that we're very familiar today, like NFC payment or other kinds of things.
What about the sophistication of the markets? So, for example, here's the Spanish market. Let's say comparing Spain to France or Germany. Is there a huge difference between the geographies in terms of evolution, or where does Spain stand right now in that cycle?
Yeah, I do think that there are some differences, and to be very frank and honest, I think that the UK, for example, is one of the leading markets where we can see open banking really taken up for many different use cases. Across Europe, we have diversity, and I would say Spain fits kind of an average. So we were lucky enough to have a player like Eurobit, which got acquired by Think last year, that was leading the pace since 2008. That means that most financial institutions in Spain already adopted a form of open banking, even pre-PSD2. So on the other hand, I think that there is still room for improvement on that user experience that I was talking about. One of the things that we like to talk about is that we need to improve the user experience one screen at a time. So we should not expect customers to go through 12 screens, for example, to be able to share their financial services data. So that's where Spain could maybe take or adopt some of the learnings from the Nordics countries, like Sweden, for example, where Tink comes from, where the open banking user experience is a lot more seamless and easy for the end user.
Okay. Ian, I really apologize that you're just actively watching, so this is like a public showing.
Oh, no.
Hopefully you can hear me now.
Now we got you. There you are.
Brilliant. Thank you.
I'm so happy we caught you. So why don't we take a step back? Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit as well, and then we'll keep moving. Go ahead.
Sure, I will do. And look, I was very curious as to how this combination of physical and virtual panel might work. So the difficulties were interesting to see. Hi, everybody. Ian McDougall. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer here at YAPLEY. Very sorry that I can't be there in person with you today. YAPLEY, just by way of context, is an open banking infrastructure and tools provider. So in many respects, we do things very similar to what the team at Tink do. Equally, though, there are certainly some differences, and the approach or the angle that we take is very much that we're about building the enabling infrastructure and tools so that our customers can build on top of our platform to create, amazing, financial products and services for our customers, for their customers, by leveraging open data and payments. So I caught the tail end, I guess, of what Beatrice was just saying there. I guess around kind of the point of fragmentation and so forth in the market. I would echo actually a lot of exactly what Beatrice just said about this. We have very significant kind of diversity of maturity across Europe, and the way I think about this concept of open banking maturity, it's always hard to say, are we in the first phase? Are we in the second phase? Are we in the third phase? Because actually, I think this scale of maturity for open banking is certainly, far more kind of logarithmic than linear. And so I think it's, we've certainly made amazing progress, as an industry over the course of the last couple of years since PSD2, the overarching piece of regulation, has been in effect. But equally, I think we'll look back, in years to come on this period of time and say, wow, we were genuinely still just getting started, especially in the context, I think, of open finance, which is obviously the next evolution of open banking. Though we've hit zones, I think, which shows us that this is, open banking is now clearly in the mainstream. I mean, there in Spain, significant growth in, API calls, adoption, and so forth. Around 20% kind of compounding growth just within the Spanish market, since the start of this year. And equally, I think what we've seen is that.
Sorry about this, guys. I apologize for all the technical hiccups. Ian, I was actually asking the question as a Chief Commercial Officer. Have you adapted your sales strategy kind of year for year? How have you quasi evolved with the strategy of sales and approaching the market when it comes to your industry?
Yeah, look, for sure we have. I think when open banking first started, like any new technology and any new piece of regulation, there are always kind of the early adopters and the early innovators, that's for sure. And so I think there was a natural attraction to open banking from both from banks as well as from fintechs, being the two fundamental kind of customer groups within the market. And what I think we've seen happen, especially over the course of the last 12 months, is the different use cases that open banking enables have become more mature and more widespread and more broadly adopted. Then, equally, we as a company have certainly started to kind of focus ourselves more on depth of understanding of specific use cases and customer types, so that we can continue to deliver the value that customers are expecting from us. And really, what we hear customers wanting us to be doing for them is taking it back to this point of fragmentation, is taking that away Because what our customers want to be doing is building better and fairer financial services and products for consumers and businesses, and want us to take care of the complexity of the regulation and the infrastructure and the connectivity to banks. So I think it's fair to say for sure that over the course of the last 12 months in particular, we very much kind of tailored our approach to the market to make sure that we're focusing on the things that are most important for our customers.
Very good. Beatrice, I'll start with you now. What's the roadmap for innovation? So where's open banking going?
Yeah, I think Ian already tipped towards it. So open banking is moving towards not only accessing data, but also initiating payment, and even more than that, being able to embed general banking services in different experiences. So from the data perspective, I still think that there is a lot to be done in terms of leveraging this data to contextualize, personalize, and be able to develop services for the end consumers that wouldn't be possible without open banking. If we look at payments, that really changes the whole ecosystem in terms of how consumers would approach real-time payment. So right now, it seems that credit card or debit card would be almost the only way to pay online. And if you're able to embed payments within your own experience and make it as seamless as possible, that is completely changing the ecosystem. And then we talk about OpenX, as Ian was talking about. If financial services are obliged to open up their services, their data, their payments to third parties, shouldn't we expect the same from other sectors? And I'm talking about utilities, telcos, and tech companies. And that would mean a full new ecosystem where information and services could be shared in a seamless way. And that would actually mean the blurring of frontiers between sectors. And that's, of course, not today, but I have no doubt it will be the future.
With all the innovation that's coming down the pipe, who do you think is going to be most disrupted? I mean, who's going to be hit by this the most?
Yeah, so one thing that I truly believe is that open banking will help to grow the pipe. So I think everyone can benefit. First, the end user. Second, those ones that are really there to embrace it, to develop the best product, the best experience for the end users will be the winners, will be the ones that could take that pipe that is growing. And it can be banks, it can be fintechs, it can be big techs. It's all on them to really embrace the power of this. There will, of course, be some players that might lag behind, and that could end up being the famous dump pipes. But everyone has the power and has the opportunity to embrace it. And I would say that partnering with fintechs is a very good way to live with all this complexity that Ian was mentioning about. Why should they take care of all this complexity, regulation, fragmentation? I remember when PSD2 was established that some people would say that it would become a commodity. It is not a commodity. It is a business that needs to be managed. We do have over 300 engineers just to maintain a platform. Do we want each and every bank to have that by themselves? Not sure.
Ian, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think to the point around where the innovation is going to come from. I think we've got the foundations of open banking, kind of the kind of mandatory components, I guess in place now. And as I said earlier, account-to-account payments, for example, are now in the mainstream, and I genuinely believe that they will become the norm over the course of the next little while. I think we'll continue to see a ton of innovation in that space, decentralized finance, embedding, other kind of banking-related services in some of these experiences as well. I think the other area of innovation, one of the other areas of innovation that will come will be some of the more advanced capabilities that are kind of defined in the open bank specifications, but maybe aren't yet kind of mandatorily enforced by the regulators and the national competent authorities in countries across Europe. I think one example of this is this concept of variable recurring payments. Right? And I won't go into the details here for everybody's sake of exactly what that's about, but you can think of that as kind of an more advanced form of payment that's most like direct debits as we know them in kind of the traditional payments world, but a far better, smoother, and seamless kind of end user experience, that comes from it. I think the other areas where we'll see more transparency and innovation, and we'll definitely see some winners here, will be specifically in relation to kind of transparency and privacy and control over data for end users, be they consumers or businesses as well. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of the solutions that will be built in that space we haven't conceived of as yet. And I think to the point around disruption and kind of, are there going to be winners and losers in this game? I absolutely agree with everything that Beatrice just said. There is a genuine win-win opportunity here. The classic meme is that the big traditional banks are going to be the losers. I don't agree with that at all, to be perfectly honest. I think the opportunity is there for them to capitalize. Actually, coming from a fintech myself, I have a high degree of empathy for the large traditional banks, and I know that may not be a popular statement for some people, but there's a lot of analogies here to what's happened in the telco sector, for example, over the course of the last 10 or 15 years, where there was the risk that the infrastructure that they had spent so much time building became commoditized and turned into just kind of pipes, where all the higher value services were layered over the top by the innovative solution providers that built on top of kind of the internet as the platform. And I think banks realize that. And I think there's a real opportunity, however, for banks to innovate through partnership and organically, and we're seeing that many examples of that already now in the open banking space. But I think we should also not lose sight of the fact
we're running out of time. Can you last point? 10 seconds.
Sure. Yeah, no worries at all. I mean, look, ultimately, the winners and businesses, right? Better, fairer financial services and financial inclusion, which is really the name of the game.
All right, on that note, I apologize for the technical difficulties we had. Beatrice, Ian, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And that's it for us. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Wonderful.